What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are doing another year-end list. We're gonna do two top five lists. We're gonna be going over my top five favorite video games and my top five favorite movies of 2019. This is the end of the year-end 2019 lists, and then we're going to get into a couple of big top 10 of the decade lists that are going to be super important, and I've already got them all finished, so I just got to sit here and record them for you guys. So today we're doing two top fives, so it's essentially like a top 10, and we're going to start with movies, and I'm going to work from 5 all the way up to my number one favorite movie of the year, and then do the same thing when we get to video games. Anyway, guys, let's not waste time. Let's do this. Coming in at number 5 on my top 5 favorite movies of 2019 is Zombieland 2. What a hilarious movie this was. It was just a great sequel to the original Zombieland that was absolutely hilarious, and there were plenty of great moments, like having a Metallica song at the beginning in the opening slow-mo section, just like the first one, and they had some amazingly hilarious jokes and great guest stars that are absolutely huge celebrities, and it was just great. It was a great comedy. I think it's actually my only comedy film that's brand new that is on this list. Anyway, guys, let's move on to number 4. Number 4 is Terminator: Dark Fate. Now, I was an actual pretty big fan of this one. I actually loved having like an almost proper sequel with James Cameron that was like a true proper sequel to T2, and it definitely did some things that were like, whoa, they just did that? What the hell? And it was great. There was a lot of great surprises, and overall it was just a good, solid Terminator film. Actually, I think I like it pretty much better than any of the other sequels at all, ever. So this was my favorite sequel. I mean, past two, of course, because of course Terminator 2 is the best Terminator, hands down. But this is the next one. This definitely beats out 3, Salvation, Genesis, all of them, except for, of course, Terminator 2. Anyway, another great film. Speaking of sequels, at number 3 is John Wick 3. Man, this was great. This was an amazing moment to go see in theaters. I actually I had heard so much about John Wick movies, and I had just never really even watched them. And my friend said, hey, next week let's go see John Wick 3. And I'm like, okay, sure. And then I'm like, well, I better friggin' watch the first 2 if I'm gonna watch the third one. So I went and I watched both of them in like one night, and holy hell, was it awesome. God, what an experience that was. And then we had to go straight after, like, it was on Thursday, watched the first 2, woke up next morning, couple hours later, basically, or not couple hours, this is more than a couple hours later, but later that night, went and saw John Wick 3, and wow, it was great. What an amazing action film. And, you know, of course, Keanu Reeves just always kicks ass. And you may not know this, but the Matrix trilogy is one of my favorite trilogies of films ever in sci-fi. So that's just a huge plus for me anyway, guys, moving on to number 2. This is one we just reviewed on the channel. Yes, literally just reviewed. It is, of course, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. Now, if you don't already know, I am a huge fan of Star Wars, and I have never been upset with or disappointed in any of them. None of them. Even Last Jedi, which I know a lot of people really hate, I was a fan that still liked it. Regardless, I know it has some problems, and even in hindsight, I can still see why people hate it. But I just enjoyed the film for what it was, and I absolutely loved Rise of Skywalker, one of my favorite films of the year, hands down. And of course, moving into number 1, you guys have probably already guessed it. If you're a gigantic nerd, there's no way this movie doesn't make your list this year. come on, it's Endgame, guys. It's Endgame. Avengers Endgame, the 3-hour, unbelievable, epic conclusion of the Infinity Saga. Now, of course, it continues on, and we're gonna have some amazing stuff. But man, what God, what a fucking movie! It was so good, guys. And of course, it had to steal my top favorite. It's just this movie in general, I can't state it enough, and you're gonna find out more about how much I actually really loved this film. It is hands down my favorite superhero movie, and it was my absolute favorite movie of the year. Even though Rise of Skywalker was like way up there, it's really way up there for me. Just Skywalker here, Endgame, all the way up here. Just it any other movie. Just of course, man, it was just an amazing film, an epic conclusion. It was 3 hours. It was done right. They had all of the fan service you wanted from it, and it was just insane to watch. That final battle sequence is something you will never forget from a movie ever. It is a comic book come to life, literally. It is like the big crossover annuals in live action form. It was just incredible. So of course, Avengers Endgame took the top spot. Alright guys, that's list number 1 down. Let's do list number 2. Of course, we gotta talk about video games. I am a huge gamer, have always been. And of course, this channel is a everything nerd. So you guys will end up hearing me talk about more video games in the future. I don't really talk about them a lot because there are a lot, and I mean a lot of YouTubers who talk about video games. And honestly, I don't know if that's a type of content that anyone's actually going to be interested in on this channel. But nonetheless, I am a huge gamer, and I wanted to tell you guys my top 5 favorite releases this year, my most favorited experiences in order of what I had the most fun playing. And let's come in with number 5, Rage 2, and this was really cool. I was never in a million years expecting another Rage game. I actually liked the first game, and I thought it was a lot of fun, and I played it maybe like once or twice, and it's kind of a game that just kind of fell to the wayside because I figured out this is probably never going to really ever get a sequel or anything, so I'm like, okay, whatever, we'll move on. And it just, of course, fell in love with many other franchises. But Rage was a really cool, fun, and just wild idea that was slightly different, that felt like Doom, but Doom crossed with like Fallout or some other crazy big open RPG style game, and I thought that was just awesome and fun by itself. Now Rage 2 is a huge sequel that really amps a lot of that up. It does more of the crazy Mad Maxy stuff, and gets more colorful and a little bit more wacky, and it has its own distinct personality, and it was just super fun to play. So I got the game early in the year, and I thought it was just a really enjoyable thing to do. Anyway, moving into number 4. Yeah, I know, I just put up 2. Ignore me, okay? I do some stupid shit sometimes when I'm talking. Anyway, guys, number 4, we are going to be giving this spot to a new entry in the franchise that is a spin-off of a main game that I would consider probably one of my absolute favorite games of last year. This is like a continuation of that. Story-wise, I'm talking about Far Cry New Dawn. This is a continuation of Far Cry 5, which Far Cry 5 was way up on my list last year. I think it might even... I don't even remember exactly everything that came out last year offhand right now, but I think it was either my number 1 favorite thing that came out, or one of my second or third. But it was really high up there. And the one thing I had that I didn't like about that particular game was the ending, which was frustrating. Just to say, of course, if you guys haven't played it, just a quick spoiler warning for you. It ends in pretty much disaster. You have three ways to end it. There's the two main endings, and then there's the hidden ending, and all three endings you technically lose. Ooh, that was frustrating. In the what they will consider to be the canon ending, I suppose, is where Far Cry New Dawn comes in, and then this kind of gives you the closure you were looking for in Far Cry 5 at the end. And of course, it was just a great experience. I just love the Far Cry games. I don't know how many people really love the Far Cry games as much as I do. It's one of those games it's in the vein of like games like Fallout, which I'm a huge fan of Fallout. Love all of the games. Really addicted to that entire world and everything. And you'll find out a little bit more about that when we do our big top 10. Man, this was just one of those franchises that has such a wild and unique tone, and I've always loved it ever since I picked up Far Cry 3 for the first time, and then I just have bought every single game since and just enjoyed the hell out of them. So yeah, this had to make the list. Now let's talk about one of my favorite things that they did this year. They finally released a real remake of Resident Evil 2. This was a game I remember playing when I was really young, and like I was terrified of it. I couldn't get past the very beginning portion of it, because I was just a little kid, and it was like a CD-ROM on PC, and it was just, I was like, whoa, what the hell is this? And I never got to play it ever again. But then I found out they made movies of Resident Evil, and then I started to go and play Resident Evil 4 when that first came out, and ever since then I've been a massive fan of Resident Evil, just huge. We actually, on the Nerd Rage TV channel, we on an episode Nerd Talk, actually might have been the deleted episode that never got aired, which reminded me, and I have to see if I still have that, because if we do, I might release that as just a special thank you to anybody who supported that channel. Anyway, I was super excited to hear that they might be doing a live action Resident Evil series that's based on the video games, a little bit closer to the video games, and it's supposed to be on Netflix, I think it was, which we haven't heard anything about that, so who knows. And we know that they're doing Resident Evil 3 remake in 2020 next year, which is going to be amazing. I cannot wait for that, because of Resident Evil 2, the remake. God, this was such an incredible experience. I finally got to finish the game and experience it as a more modern, I guess you could say, Resident Evil fan, and that was super, super awesome for me. And it was so classic survival horror, and I had so much fun with it. Anyway, moving into number two, Metro Exodus. Man, I almost wanted to give this one the top spot, but I couldn't quite do it. Metro series is I just was like, I think it was at like a family video or something, and I was like, I always saw, because Metro 2033 was on the shelf for video games that you could rent, and I was like, man, I always wanted to play these. And so I grabbed 2033 and Last Light, and I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to play them back to back. And I rented them and played them and beat both of them, and I'm just absolutely forever hooked on this series. It's one of the best game series I think there is when it comes to FPS games, and really awesome atmospheric horror style to it. It's just so enjoyable. One of my absolute favorite series, and of course this third edition was incredible, and one of my absolute favorite experiences. but my number one favorite video game experience this year is a game that just recently came out. And of course, I was in a super Star Warsy mood when this came out. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Man, this was just... it was so fun. It took me multiple days to just sit and enjoy as much of this game as I could, and I had an absolute blast, and I think it just excelled over any of the other new games that came out this year. So yeah, there we go. That is my top 5 favorite movies and top 5 favorite video games of the year. Now, of course, I know my list is going to be very different and maybe even completely estranged from anybody else's, so hopefully you enjoyed it. I am a quirky person, as you may know from the channel. If you don't, go check out some of my other videos. We do all kinds of cool stuff. I play some Magic the Gathering tabletop on a series I call Arkham Tabletop. We also do music reviews for hard rock and heavy metal bands, and we also talk about everything nerdy on this channel, and I hope you guys enjoy everything that I have to offer. And if you're looking more forward to more of these lists, actually more top of the decade lists, they are coming soon. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe if you can, and I'll catch you in the next one.